hard blow to his left leg, but Blackie was standing next to him, shielding him, so he leaned against his horse. Only then was he able to feel the big animal's shudders as the heavy mini-balls, meant for him, plowed into Blackie. But the black horse kept to his feet, giving the sergeant a solid side to lean on. All of a sudden, he realized there were more men in blue around him and firing. The line had broken. The Southern boys were starting to break. The war's got to be over soon, he thought, sick of the death. Firing was letting up throughout the line. He took a deep breath and turned toward his dying horse. Something slammed into his head. He grasped at the saddle horn. The world started rushing away as though he were looking at it through the wrong end of a spyglass. "I'm sorry, Ma." Then, nothing. 1. October 19th, 1865, Douglas General Hospital, Washington, D.C. Sister Deborah Coleman paused to wipe the sweat from her forehead. Sad and frustrated, she removed an embroidered handkerchief from her upper left pocket and dabbed the wet beads that had formed on her nose and hairline. Finished, she unceremoniously stuffed the soggy handkerchief back into its pocket. Going back to her duties, her thoughts returned to what was on everyone's minds. In just a little over 1 month, the hospital would be closing, and the patients would be scattered throughout the system. It wasn't good, especially for the long-term ill and those being treated by the specialists. As she walked through the ward, she stopped to check each patient. First, their pulse. After determining there was a heartbeat, she felt their forehead for a fever. It was hard to tell. Though all of the windows were open as wide as possible, attempting to combat the unseasonably high October temperatures in Washington, D.C. was almost impossible. Hence, all patients' bodies were hot. A stray, soft brown curl escaped from under her cap when she turned to check the next patient. Impatiently, she pushed it back, irritated at the natural curls that seemed to have minds of their own, and examined the big man. He had been in a coma since they brought him in the afternoon of April 10th. All of his visible wounds had healed without infection, and, thank the Lord, that was a major miracle. He had been shot in the left arm and the left leg, breaking the femur. He would forever walk with a slight limp. On top of that, he had been bayoneted in the right side, a type of wound that usually guaranteed infection followed by death. Finally, the wound that had stopped him was the bullet to the head. Fortunately, it had not penetrated his brain, but had gouged a 3-inch-long trench in the right side of his skull before continuing on its way. She often marveled that the big man had not died of secondary infection, nor of increased cranial pressure from the blow to his head. But here he lay, his chest rising and falling in a regular rhythm. She thought of the work that had been put into Henry, even though he might never realize it. Every day his body had been exercised. Either she or an orderly spent at least an hour working the muscles in his arms and both legs after the break in the left leg healed. That had been by order of Dr. James, and it had paid off. Though he had lost some of his muscle tone, he had retained quite a bit. There was a bowl and pitcher of water next to his bed, a clean cloth placed alongside. Deborah picked up the cloth, poured some water on it, wrung it out over the bowl, and, holding the wet cloth at one end, swung it around and around in the air, allowing evaporation to cool it. After cooling the cloth, she softly wiped it across his forehead. There was no response. She continued with the cloth until she had completely wiped his face and neck. Then she rinsed and wrung as much of the water out as possible, folded the cloth,